Hello, hello. Welcome to LEADJITSU Rise in the Dojo. I am your host, Sensei Rhonda. And on this show, we help leaders strengthen the practice of leadership excellence so that they can create thriving workplaces, better outcomes, and you know what? They can feel better too. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's prepare to rise. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about today's show. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Jitsu Rise in the Dojo. In this episode, we're going to talk about your personal and professional brand. And we're not talking logos and we're not talking brand colors, but we're talking about the brand that is you. So, looking forward to diving into that. And I want to say first, good morning to everyone out there and good evening to my co host and compadre, Marae. How are you this evening?
I am fantastic. I'm really looking forward to talking about branding today. I was really, expecting it last time, but here we are. So all good for me.
Yes, fantastic. And hopefully Roz will be joining us. You all know who Roz is. And so when she pops in, I'll bring her up on screen. But for now, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm really excited to introduce our expert guest, Marquese Martin-Hays. And Marquese is an expert in human performance and happiness. So he's got over 35 years of experience and a very diverse background that ranges from a military upbringing to competing as an ultra marathoner. Can't you just see that from him? Marquise integrates the disciplines of mind, body, and spirit into his work. And today he's going to inspire us with his belief in unlimited potential. So we're going to get ready to shed those masks and prepare to craft an authentic personal and professional brand. Marquise, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sensei. I'm so glad to be here today. It is my honor. And Maria, and how to pronounce your name again, right? Marie?
Mireille, yes, it's a French name.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Well, I want to start first before we move into our deep breathing and that whole segment. I want to just start with a question right out of the gate, because you talk a lot, Marquise, about your personal brand, who you are. I've also heard you talk about authenticity. And on the other side, we'll break down authenticity and all that so that we do a bit of level setting. But my first question for you is, um, in the way that you think about it, is our authenticity fixed or is it fluid?
It's a great question. Actually, I love that question. And you said we'll talk about it more on the other side. But my first blush response is it is the two options again were
Fixed or fluid?
I think authenticity is fixed and it evolves because
Mm.
Hmm.
as an individual, but who we are in that moment, there is a level of authenticity that can come through. But I love to say when I'm communicating with people, those moments where you feel really upset and you may lose control, that's actually not authentic, all the things you're saying. What's authentic is actually, I'm hurt by what was said and I'm afraid
Mm.
now that you don't love me. And that's what I mean by authenticity. It's a present state and it's authentic, not what I'm feeling on the outside, but the truth of what's causing me to feel.
Ooh, there's a lot there for us to dive into, and we're going to go deeper here in just a moment. But one of our practices here on LEADJITSU Rise in the dojo, as we sort of practice and sort of pattern ourselves after the martial arts, is we like to do a little bit of deep breathing before we enter the dojo. So we're going to take you through a couple of rounds of deep breathing. And first, I always like to share a fact about deep breathing and why it's so important, because we often miss that. So, did you know that people engaging in deep breathing can experience a reduction in their heart rate on average of about 5 to 10 beats per minute? Right? When we're doing this regularly, it contributes to better health, lower stress, and so much more. So, if you're not incorporating deep breathing on a regular basis, I so encourage you to do so. So, with that, let's do a couple of rounds of deep breathing. Feel free to do this however you want. You can close your eyes, you can leave them open. We're going to do 2 rounds. We're going to do 2 rounds of 4. We're going to go in through our nose for 4 and out through the mouth for 4. Then the second round, in through the nose for 4 and out through the mouth. Everybody take a deep breath and let's begin. So inhale for 4 through the nose and exhale for 4 through the mouth. Inhale through the nose for 4. Exhale through the mouth for 4. Bring yourself present. Come back to center. And let's prepare to enter the dojo. All right. So now we're here. We are in it. We're in it to win it, as they say. So, Marquese, I want to get you first. Tell us a little bit about who is Marquese. Like, how you are an amazing, like, you're doing human performance and potential and all of this. Who are you, and how'd you get here?
Thank you so much. I'm a guy who just loves people. At the end of the day, when people ask me, "Who are you and what do you do?" I help people discover how amazing they already are by getting rid of barriers mentally, physically, and spiritually. I believe with everything in my fiber that who you are is amazing. It may have been blocked, it may have been stunted, it may have been kicked to the side. But if we can unpack that, not only will you live a life where you feel full and satisfied and satiated with whatever you have, little or a lot, doesn't matter. But when you're in that state, you have true fulfillment. And the purpose for you being fulfilled is so that we can glean from you because it makes us better. And when we're better, we have something to offer back to you. So I believe wholeheartedly in interdependence. How did I get here? That's a great question. So uh, the short version is that my father decided he needed a change in his life, and he joined network marketing. And around 7 and more like 8, 9 years old, he started listening to books and tapes and CDs, not CDs, they weren't around then. I am that old. And all I remember is every day, all day. My fun joke that I tell people that is reality is that in the car, my father didn't play the car radio. He played books and tapes of people telling their story about their struggle, how they didn't quit, how they developed and grew. And then one day they won. And this, you would hear this all the time, how to connect with people, along with you need to read books by Edwin Lewis Cole. He's probably a lost legend, but he's an incredible man. Napoleon Hill, How to Win Friends and Influence People. We were forced to read and be exposed to that kind of content our entire preteen, tween, teenage years. It was the norm. To this day, Pops is still doing the same stuff. And being exposed to that, I didn't realize how that would uniquely set me apart. I'm definitely a Gen Xer. However, my mind is more like a millennial because of that awareness of self-empowerment, personal development. I don't think like a lot of my peers. They think I'm a little bit weird. And I'm like, no, I believe in my dream. What are you talking about? What? What else would you do? And that along with real life, right? Also, and I say real life, not that that isn't real, but like the hardship of life that doesn't necessarily always match. And so through that and through my upbringing, my mother, whose tenacity is off the charts, by the way, my mother is one of those women. She had me at 14.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
that tell you something.
Yeah.
At 14, she could be a lawyer if she wanted to. She's that amazing. She has multiple degrees and multiple masters. She's brilliant. But between her tenacity and zeal for life, my father's dreaming capacity and leadership, those things forged inside of me, along with having the opportunity to live in Germany, of all places, before the Berlin Wall came down. Things like that, living in different states around the country and out of the country, really just kind of helped cultivate this very shy, very nervous, very timid, loving, but needing to feel safe little boy into the man that over time, now that I've just broken to my 50s in the last several years, the last 15 years, I really began to come into knowing who I am. I had an idea before, like I had it up here. But in the last 15 years, I began to go, wait a minute, this works. That doesn't work. And in the last 5 years, it's just began to just go ballistic. And it all stems from, I just know who I am,
Right.
not needing to prove it to anyone because I actually know it in my inner being. And that's who I am.
I love that. So thank you for sharing your story. What an amazing impact your family and your parents have had on the person that you became. And Dan is out there. Hey, Dan, thanks for tuning in. Dan is joining us from Kenya, where I will be visiting in July. So, Dan, can't wait to meet you in person. Thank you so much for all that you do. And so, so you took all of that,
Yeah.
moved into this space of really helping people unlock their human potential. I want to rewind now because we started the show talking about authenticity, and then
Right.
we'll move this into your personal and professional brand. And Christopher is out there as well. Excellent morning, all. Excellent upbringing. Too rare to have parents who understand their own potentials and those of their children. I know, Christopher, right? Very rare. So let's go back to authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a bit of level setting because I feel like it means, particularly in this day of social media, I feel like it means different things to different people. What does it mean to you?
When I think about it in this world, it's really, there's a difference between, going back to what I said a moment ago, I'll start there. Who am I? Rhonda, most people have never answered that question, let alone been asked it. It is not a common conversation. If you ask that in Western civilization, well, I'm a dad. I'm an entrepreneur. I am an former ultra marathoner. I am a good neighbor. I am a speaker. I'm a coach. And none of those things describe who am I. But we're so detached from who we actually are that we then insert our lives into the roles. And if a role doesn't work out, we lose it. If a role does work out, we overinflate as if we're it. And we're neither. A friend asked me several years ago, I want to say 12, 15 years ago. He said, no, sheesh. I'll say 12, 15 years ago. He said, can you just be? And I thought, of course I can just be. I'm being Marquese. No, he says, no, can you be? And it took me several rounds to realize I had no clue what he was talking about. But what he was asking me was, can I just exist without the need to have accolades or accomplishments inside of just who I am? And I think in today's society, in fact, I know, because whenever I'm training around the world, I'm asking this question. People don't have the answer, but it starts the wheels turning. And that's the thing. So when I think about authenticity, it's coming from it has to start with knowing who you are. Otherwise, I'm reacting to things around me, and none of that is authentic. So when we say I'm keeping it real, you're not keeping it real. You're just reacting. You're reacting from a place of not knowing who you are. That's my thought.
Marae, I want to get your voice into this conversation and get you to react to some of what Marquise is sharing with us because I love it.
I love it as well. I mean, it's so deep, and he's right. I mean, when we are asked who we are, we always relate to something completely outside of ourselves, because that's how we've been conditioned. That's how we've been raised, and we actually don't even realize that we are starting with time to identify with all those external things that we've been conditioned to be identified to. So it is a profound question, and I think it has to start at home, and I can see for you it was at home where it started. From a very young age, when your parents actually allow you to be who you wanted to be, and then naturally it's just you are who you are, which is not the case for everyone, where certain parents just want their kids to be who they want them to be, and they don't really want to listen and really identify what are their potential and understand who they are, and that's a challenge. Especially now, with all those, what's happening with social media, and at home you have those restrictions, and then in social media you want to copy people, and there's so much going on, so it's very difficult for people to really go deep and try to understand what they are.
Yeah. So, Marae, that is brilliant because what I love about what you and Marquise are saying is we're looking at the conditioning around us. So when we say to someone, "Who are you?" and they respond with this automatic what they do, right? That because that's what happens. You don't tell me who you are, you tell me what you do. Um, and when that is happening, it's about us helping people see that they are someone deeper and there is more to them. And I know Marquise said that's what you do is help people with that. And how do you even how do you even begin to have a conversation with someone? Because I probably will argue with you. I'm like, no, this is who I am. No, I am a ex CEO and of a hospital and global international consultant and author of my fifth book. No, that's who I am. So how would you help me? And before you answer that, Rod, our co-host, is saying, I'm not feeling well. So she's out there listening and loving the topic. So feel better, Roz. We miss you. So how do you begin to help
Yeah,
someone see that they are something else, something more?
great question. I do that two ways, and I really, when I say great question, that's a great question because we are all searching through this. There's a couple things I do. If I'm having a personal conversation and I ask them, "Who are you?" and they do the typical, I listen. I'm like, "Yeah, oh wow, that's interesting." I said, "But who are you?" Well, I'm this. I said, "No, no, no. I know that's what you do. Who are you?" And many times they'll say, "I've never been asked that. I need a moment." Something very interesting, a statistic that came out, I think, in the last 5 years. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. Only 10 to 15% of people are self aware.
Hmm.
And of the 10 to 15%, only 5% actually live it, which means 95% of us, I used to say, are fake, phony, and trying to figure it out. But that's not completely true. We really are present. We're just kind of behind the curtain. Like, is it okay for the real me to come out? The me that I really am versus the one I need to be so that you accept me.
Hmm.
I think the difference between the 5% and the 95% is about that big. The 5% is not better. They're just comfortable being themselves. They're no longer bound by the things that cause the other person to be uncertain that it's okay. So I typically start when I'm in a group conversation, I will bring that up. And then I will ask them things like, yeah, because the reason why you're in these meetings or having all these unnecessary meetings or working 60, 70, 80 hours a week is because you're not being you. Like, you like not having time with the people you love. You like not being with your fur babies, don't you? And they chuckle and they giggle like, no, seriously, let that sit in. You don't get paid for all those hours that you're not living your life. But you do it because it's what we do. And I let it sit for a moment. And I chuckle, say, hey, listen, I'm not trying to cause a revolt. I just want to get you present to it so that we can now do business and shift things. But it's going to come from knowing who you are and honoring it and making sure that you're choosing to be present in every moment at work or in life, so you're not wasting time. And then I have a little fun. It's the person the highest ranking person you know. They'll name that person. And I said, they seem to walk to the beat of their own drum, don't they? Like, they don't really apologize. They're just there. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's the goal, for you to be you, because they're just being them. That's the only difference.
Wow. This is it's getting pretty deep. Getting deep, Marquise. So Christopher said, if people could just have the kind of parents who model the strength and tenacity it takes to wade against the waves of common consciousness, and that there is no greater reward, if only, right? If only. And it's so interesting because I am so certain that if they had that, they would give that.
Yep.
Right? You can't give what you don't have, which is why these conversations are so meaningful to me. And being able to bring people like you and to talk about things like this, because we are giving people an opportunity to learn and explore the depths of who they are. So you said that 95%, I kind of like that. I mean, I can be a little bit messy, but I kind of like the fake phony and trying to figure it out.
I like it too, but it doesn't go over well all the time because people feel
It doesn't. I know.
But it's you're role playing.
Right. So when we are talking about, I want to shift and talk a little bit about leadership, right? Okay. So everything that I do, my purpose, my reason for being is really to help support, elevate, empower, advocate for leaders. It is in my bones. A part of that comes from my own experience of not really having some of that as I was a young leader, and believing that everyone should have access to the tools and resources that help them show up to be the best possible versions of themselves, right? I guess that's who I am. So right? I know. So as we do that, though, it's not easy, right? That's not an easy thing to do. And Marquise, I had a conversation the other day along the lines of what you were just talking about. In fact, just yesterday with the group that I have, a mastermind group called Ascension Leaders. On our group call, we were talking about burnout and overwhelm and stress and working too many hours and doing all these things. And basically, one of the participants on the call, I said, so tell me, what would be a little bit of a pressure release valve for you, right? What does that look like? What would that feel? You don't have to change the world. Just release a little bit of the pressure. She identified something. And I said, so let's talk about why that's not happening. And she said, it's me. It's my stuff. I'm in the way. So we know this, but we're afraid. How do we start moving past, Marquise, that fear that we have of showing up authentically, stating and asking for and expecting what we need?
Yeah, that question what comes to mind for me is, I don't remember the quote exactly, but a life unexamined is a life not worth living. Mm-hmm. So when I hear her talk about that, as she responded, I think to myself, you're going to keep doing the same thing because, to be honest, it's comfortable. It's familiar. Going down the rabbit hole, can I really come out? Let me tell you my personal path. Is it really okay to be me? Because I'm afraid I'll be rejected. And if I'm rejected, then it wasn't worth coming out, because what I was doing, at least it was familiar. But a friend gave me a gift. about 11 years ago. I'm Marquise. My nickname is Keese. And what she said to me, she said, there is no good Marquise and bad Keese. There's just Marquise, and he is loved. And for the first time in my life, in my late 30s, it clicked. And it was like I can feel tears behind my eyes now, because it was such a moment. I didn't know that I didn't have to do this. I didn't know that I didn't have to perform. But that gift of like, oh, I love Marquise. Like the whole, like, there's no good, bad you. There's just you. And most of us have never had an experience as such. So it's unfamiliar to come from behind the curtain, because the last time we did, let me see, we were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and we were shunned, slammed, shut down. And we told ourselves a story then. It wasn't the person. We told ourselves a story then that locked us up. Quick story. Do I have time for a quick story?
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm sitting in a conference. I'm probably in my early 40s, and I'm still working this out. And they ask a question. Do any of you feel, I think the word was anxiety in life? And I'm like, no, I'm pretty cool. And then they start asking different situations. Do you not show up here? Do you not show up there? And I was like, oh, I have a little bit of anxiety around my looks. Just what it is. And they said, so when they weren't talking to me, it was a group context. And they were like, well, when was the first time you had anxiety or whatever it was around that? And I thought, and I remembered, it was like 6th grade. I remember these 2 girls, I was near them in the hall, we were friends or something. And they saw a boy go by and they said, he fine. I was like, wow. Wow. That was just an interesting expression. Like it settled with me, like, wow, okay. And at some point I said, so how do y'all think I look? Not having a good definition. They said, you're cute, you're handsome. But they didn't say it with the same energy, y'all. So the little boy was like, oh, okay, at least I didn't say I was ugly. I lived with that my entire life.
Goodness.
So whenever there was something coming up about looks, I would push back. Oh, that person was more attractive than me. As if looks were the thing. But I would do that. In this conference, I'm sitting there and they're like, you need to go back and make that right. Let that, they're not telling me personally. Let that little boy know, that little girl know, hey, it's okay. Like that wasn't true. And you might be overinflated. You didn't have the tools to really process it. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, handsome is actually a compliment. What am I like? That's weird. And cute is not a put down.
Right.
And then it dawned on me. You're sitting here in this conference dealing with something that happened back in 6th grade. Around 2 girls you probably wouldn't even date. True story. And do you realize that 6 months ago, you signed a professional, getting paid actor and modeling contract that you are in right now, and you're worried about your looks? It was like a mind-blowing moment that I didn't even realize. And I booked 2 to 3 gigs within the next 2 months just because I let that energy go out of my life.
Wow.
Something and didn't even know that there was something underneath running my life.
That's really powerful, Marae. I'm going to get you to react to that, because the programs are running so deep.
Yeah.
We don't know it and we don't recognize it. But first, let me say hello to Morris out there. He's also over in Africa. Hello, how are you? Great to see you. Thanks so much for tuning in. And Roz said, we are scared to show up because we were judged, rejected, or held accountable for what was shared. Absolutely, Roz. And so Marae, is some of that old conditioning and programming still running below the surface for you? I know it is for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's still running because, like I was saying, the conditioning is just so strong, and we don't take time to listen to ourselves because there's all this noise and everything that people are saying about us. We actually listen more to the outside and what people say instead of listening to ourselves, sitting down and really reflecting on us and the gift that we have and how strong we are. And I think that's one thing that we need to do, and I've been trying to do it, is, just take time to sit down by yourself, silent, and really start to analyze and counting the blessing that you have in your life, and really the quality that and I'm going to be a bit that God that gave you. And like, we are perfect the way we are. We don't need to change ourselves. It's just for us to really identify those gifts and believe in them. I think
Yeah.
it's a belief more than anything.
Yeah.
Mm, I love that. I absolutely agree. And I do want to say, I always say this. I know I always have to throw in this caveat. And I love earlier, Marquise, that you said that our authenticity is fixed, but it evolves. And I do think that there are times, and this is very much in line with this branding conversation, that we need to intentionally evolve, right?
Yeah.
Because I always say, be yourself, be authentic, unless you're authentically awful, then be somebody else, right? Because when you have conditioned yourself to be authentically also awful, and trust me, people, that is a thing. I have seen leader after leader after leader who are authentically awful. And they're like, oh, I'm just being me. Okay, well, let's be somebody else then, because this isn't working. It's not working for your team. It's not going to work for your bottom line, all of that. So I want to just get you to react, Marquise, to my favorite saying, be authentic unless you're authentically awful, and then be somebody else.
Listen, so I'm also in the wellness industry, and I used to say, you should not eat meat. Here's all the reasons. But what I realized, there are some people who are still going to eat meat. So in order for me to help people get healthy, I had to let go of that conversation and find a bridge, eat organic, etc., to help them. Right. I love to me, that's what that is. Be authentic unless you are, say it again, be authentic,
Unless you're authentically awful.
authentically awful, right? So I love that, because the authenticity that they can relate to is what they're currently doing,
Right,
but it's not really who they are. They're
right.
out of tune with who they are. So I love that. I think you should keep it. I might steal it and borrow it. Uh, Brene Brown, the work she's helped us embrace better around vulnerability is
Yep.
something that authentically awful person is unwilling to tap into. So I love it. I think that's an amazing quote. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And you know what? Roz is right in tune with us. So thank you for participating, Roz, even though you're not feeling well. Some people can't handle the truth about themselves. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this, because this is personal. This
Yeah.
is professional, right? And people will sugarcoat things because they know that, okay, so what's the movie? A Few Good Men, right? You can't handle the truth, right?
Yeah.
So people will sugarcoat things because they
Yeah.
know that you can't handle the truth. In
Yeah.
leadership, people will not tell you the truth. They will
Yeah.
not tell you what they think. They will not tell you that they think your idea is going to cause problems later down the road. They will not tell you that this new policy of not working, that of working 100% in office is a problem, and now tomorrow they're going to look for a job. All of these things they will not tell you, because they do not believe that you can handle the truth about who you are, your communication style, your decision making, and all of that. What do we do with that, Marquise?
Yeah. I think so. If you're willing to evolve, number one, join LEADJITSU, because she's going to challenge you to really expand yourself, but you
Yeah,
have to be willing to,
right.
right? You have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, there's nothing we can do for you. If you have a growth mindset, then that entails at least some of these qualities: humility, willingness to learn,
Yeah.
willingness to admit when you're wrong, and the ability to listen to others. This is why, oh, by the way, that's where my particular legit shoe leader practice is, in that arena when we get there.
Yeah.
Because that is what, anything outside of that is the negative ego and
Mhm.
messes up everything else around you. Because if they think the buck stops with you, then yeah, you're living that authentically awful life that
Mhm.
unfortunately the people around you don't even want to be around. And
Yeah.
it's one of those little things that it's really up to them. It takes a person being willing to grow. I don't think we can help people who are not interested.
Oh, I love that, Marae. So come in here and join us in this because the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. I'm so glad you brought that up. And in fact, I feel a social post coming on around this because even in the work that I do, in the leadership work that I do, I was talking about this the other day with a dear friend here on the island. I am not looking, I don't want to work for the organizations that I need to convince that
Mm-hmm.
leadership is important and all of
Right.
it. That's not, those are not my people. My
Mhm.
people are the people who are going, you know what? We've identified a challenge and we are looking for solutions. We know that there is a path forward and we are looking for that. That's growth mindset, Marae.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely, and it comes down to self-awareness and also self-esteem. Because if you don't, if you're not self-aware and you have no self-esteem, that's when you think that the box really stop at your level, and there's nothing we can do until this person can actually develop, the self-awareness and the self-esteem. And that's a very important thing to, when you lead a team, to get them to be themselves and to accept that, sometimes they're going to fall short, but it's not the end of the day. They can always, rectify and find a different way to get to a different to the best result, instead of condemning them and saying, okay, that's wrong, or that's bad, or that's, and I think that's what actually destroying the leadership right now, is that we think black and white, but it's not black and white. It's just, always something that you learn from. It's always a lesson. It's always a learning that can help you, that you can use to get to the next level. And that's very important to pass this message.
Mhm.
I hear Marae saying that creating that space,
Yeah.
creating the environment,
Yeah.
creating the culture so
Yeah.
that people can be safe. Because if they're not safe, they will never be authentic. They will never come from behind that curtain, right? So I would really, I love that you brought up self esteem, Marae. I love that brought that into the conversation because it takes a person with inherent self esteem to be able to hear, yeah, that's not going well for you, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It from my perspective, and I can only give you that from where I'm standing. Here's what I see, here's what I feel in your engagement and your interaction, and I just want to give that gift to you, that gift of feedback. Takes a big person who require, and that requires self-esteem in order for them to navigate that. Would you agree with that, Marquise?
I have a slightly different take, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So I think self. So I did some research. That doesn't mean it's perfect.
Yeah.
Self awareness is what we're actually talking about. Self esteem. So they're very similar, but self awareness is inherent knowing of who you are aside from accolades and everything else. It's your foundation.
Mhm.
It cannot be touched by anything outside of you. Self
Yeah.
esteem is a part of your accolades, which is very important. We need healthy self esteem, but it is and can be impacted by outside circumstances. So we need a sense of both. And if they have healthy self awareness, we're good. If they have healthy self esteem, that's good, but it may not really sink in as truth. They may
Mhm.
go back to try to defend or pretend or ante up. Self-awareness, they're going to go, that's true. Let me find out why that is so I can shift it. And now you have a whole new person.
Okay, so let's add one more to this puzzle. Then let's
Yes.
add self-confidence,
Ooh, yes.
right? So
Yes.
maybe what we're talking about is
Yes.
that confidence, which I go two ways on confidence because there is the inherent level of confidence and the belief in yourself that you can. There
Yeah.
is also a confidence that comes from doing, right? So you also can build confidence by
Yeah.
doing.
Yes.
I will give you my perfect example is I was a terrible public speaker. I could not, don't ask me any question. Don't even ask me my name. If we're in a conference and there could be 100 people in there, we're going around introducing ourselves. At
Yeah.
person 50, my heart rate is, I have heart palpitations. I'm
Really?
starting to get clammy hands, could not speak in front of a crowd.
Wow.
My confidence to do so today is a result of doing it and learning it and growing into it and going,
Hmm.
okay, I may stumble over a word, but oh my goodness, the sun still rose tomorrow, right? The sun's still going to rise. Not a big deal. We're going to
Right.
move on and that sort of thing. So I think when we're talking about all of these elements, it's really important for leaders to understand how these pieces
Hmm.
connect and intersect with the personal brand that they have crafted, either intentionally or not. Back to you, Marquise.
What comes first of all, I'm going to go. I want to put the three together. I want to do some research because this is
Yeah.
my so much. So thank you for that. The other piece that I want to just drop in, it's a term, psychological safety.
Yep.
And if leaders aren't studying psychological safety, what are you doing? Because all of us are just big kids. We're just big kids. And unfortunately, research that I read 15 years ago, so I hope it's changed. Research that I read 15 years ago is that our emotional intelligence only grows to about the 7th or 8th grade and it stops. And so emotionally, we live life from those ages. And that's very dangerous, especially in leadership. So, psychological safety, I offer leaders dive into that, dive more
Mhm.
into lead jitsu to unpack what you don't know because you just don't know what you don't know. And it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to grow and expand because you are over people.
Love, love, love this so much. All right. So let's talk about. I want you to maybe have this pretend person on the couch who is a leader and they are unaware, really. They've crafted their personal brand unintentionally. They just show up and kind of do the thing. And right. And all of a sudden they've gotten passed over for a couple of promotions and they're like, gosh, maybe I need to do something different with my personal brand. I want you to give us a couple of steps that a couple of things you would invite that leader to do or consider and we're going to do that right after that because this segment I like to call we're going on to the mat. And so we're about to learn to master the mat. I am an action oriented person. I like steps and checklists and charts. I'm like, oh, Marquise, tell me what to do. So, how can these leaders fix it?
So the first thing I'm gonna have that leader do is I'm gonna say number one, are you happy? And they're gonna answer probably not. I'm gonna ask them why not. What are you doing in your life that's you're unhappy about? I'm gonna ask them to think about their role and what it is that they're doing with their life. Are you just here to make money? There's nothing wrong with it, but are you here? Is that why you're here? Are you going to take that position just to take it? I actually have a real life scenario right now where I'm working with someone that's a friend and a position is available for them to take now. They're not sure if they want to take it because there's someone else who, according to the other world where we just do things because it's expected of us,
Mm-hmm.
technically speaking, that other person should be the one going for it.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, they're good friends. The guy going for it is super technical, super smart, horrible at relations. That's not his strength. The guy who should go for it, lower ranking, less seniority, amazing with people, amazing as a leader, but he's like, I'm not sure what I should do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what do you mean you're not sure? Well, because there's this world. So I'm saying to him, okay, we know you're not happy where you are. And we know that if you're not promoted, the district is probably going to suffer for several more years. Well, he said, no, because I'll be by his side. That makes sense. That's great. That's a decent compromise. But you don't get to live who you are and he doesn't get to live who he is. So you're both going to be in positions that don't allow you to fully thrive because you're just going along to get along.
Mm.
I encouraged him, you should go have a conversation, an authentic conversation about, hey, we both know this is available. Here are your strengths. Here are my strengths. What do you think if we did it like this so that we could both thrive?
Mm.
Sometimes as a leader, it takes getting honest. Am I happy where I am? Because the guy who's really smart and technical, he's not going to be happy. There's no
Right.
way. It's not who he is. But because he's functioning from outside of himself, he might make his next 5 to 8 years horrible, more stressful, unnecessarily, and impacting his family because he's uncomfortable every day performing. And the guy who will play under him won't get to thrive and do what he does. Oh, and by the way, there's a good chance somebody's going to come along and snatch him out the district because he's excelling and empowering others throughout the district. So this
Wow.
scenarios where I'm literally having conversations, challenging him, going, no, if this is who you are, why won't you? Well, because, Korean Air had a plane crash. I don't remember how many years ago it was. I think it was in the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were asked what happened, the co-pilot said, I saw what was going on, but because of the way our culture is respected, I could not correct the pilot. And as a result, excuse me, I'm like, did they live? I think it was a study of culture, actually, is what it was. A study of culture. And so even though the co-pilot did understand, could not go past that because they were more concerned with the perception and respect versus the reality of what could have saved lives.
Mm.
We do that too often. We operate outside of ourselves. So I will always begin with, who are you and what do you really want? Not what is expected of you. As we start that process, then we move into, okay, what is the next logical step? Does that mean, one, you might need to start selling some stuff and get it out of your life so you're not obligated financially to be doing something you don't want to do? Does that mean, okay, you might need to go back to school and up your credentials if you want to expand? I take it from the purest desire that we can possibly find that they're aware of. Then I
Mm-hmm.
look at their life as it currently is and recommend adjustments, growing or releasing. And it might be a little bit of both. That to me begins to open them up to a space where they can start to actually have the opportunity to choose, which is a very interesting word because we
Mm-hmm.
all have a choosing muscle, but we think that when we don't choose, it's okay. But the reality of not choosing is still a choice and usually results in less than what we desire. So I try to help them get back into the position of being willing to choose. And by the way, the gentleman I'm using as an example, he's exercising his right to choose by going to investigate the expectations if he were to take the position.
Uh-oh, we lost that part. You cut out just a little bit. Say that last part again.
Sure. The gentleman who I recommended that he should get the position, he's exercising his muscle of choice because what he's doing is going to the leaders to investigate what is required of the position and what will be required down the road so that he can find out, is it a good fit for himself versus sitting on the sidelines and allowing someone else to take a role that technically who he's wired to be, he should be in.
Mm.
Now that he's operating out of choice, we'll see where it goes.
Right. You said some really powerful things, and our ability to choose is really important. We are choosing all day, every day. Not choosing is choosing, right? Not speaking your heart and mind, not showing up authentically, pretending you're something that you're not. All of those are choices that we're
Mm-hmm.
making. You might be making them on an unconscious level, but you are constantly choosing your brand and how you're going to show up all day, every day. I love the idea that we can intentionally make a shift in that, right? Intentionally recreate and recraft that personal and that professional brand. So Regina's out there. Hey, good morning. It's good to see you out there this morning. Raven's out there loving this conversation on so many incredible insights and perspectives. And Roz said a lot of people take jobs based on financial need. Absolutely. And you end up in the rabbit hole. right? You end up in the rabbit hole and then wonder how you got, why am I in this hole? Well, you put yourself in there, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, the hole might have invited you, but you willingly went, right?
Yeah.
You could have chose differently. So loving all of that. And I want to just sort of come to you a little bit, Marae, and then we're going to do our Leaders Code segment after this. But when we're talking about making choices for our personal brand and who we are and how we show up, I want to also get any additional insights that you have, because you have, let me just say, if you all don't know Marae and have not followed her, she is a rock star. She is internationally recognized. She has lifted her voice in the space of male dominated fields, women entering these male dominated fields. You know, you have made a change and a difference. So I'm watching you every week craft and elevate your brand. So I want to see if you have any insights you want to add to this conversation.
I think the insight that I wanted to add is, making sure we always try to get information, because the fact that we're not challenging ourselves, or the fact that we're not, trying to get what we want, is because we don't have the information, and sometimes we're waiting for the information to come to us, whereas we have to go and get it. And that's something, when I started in the, in the oil and gas industry, that I was doing. I was waiting for things to come to me, because for me, I had the skills, I had everything. So everyone will notice that, this is the person to choose for this project or for this promotion. But that's not the way it works. I had to go and understand, the industry, understand who are the people who are actually the pioneer in this industry, and get the information and connect with the right people to be able to grow, not only, to learn more, but also to be able to grow in terms of, my career, and bring more value, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is bringing the value, and then it actually help your brand in that particular, environment. So I think that's what I really wanted to add is, it is dynamic. You have to be proactive, on setting up your brand, if you want to grow, and if you want to actually make a difference.
Thank you, Marae. That fantastic. Christopher says, "Preach, sister." No, it's so good, this information. So, Marquise, we're going to go into our Leaders Code segment for a minute, but we've done a lot of talking around this. Before we do that, can you please share, when you talk about your personal and professional brand, what are you actually talking about? Let's put a bow on that. So, because I want to make sure that we're able to sort of maybe to clip this section a little bit later, so that when we say your personal or professional brand, what is it we're really talking about?
We're talking about, who are you? And Ray just gave us the word, the value that you bring to society, or the environment or organization that you find yourself in. To me, that is where your personal brand comes from. It's not how I promote myself. It's who I actually am, because that is reliable. You'll get it time and time again, but it only comes from knowing who I am. So when I think about my personal brand, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to bring to this space. I can literally describe how who I am fits versus who I'm projecting to be. And I think that's where, I believe it's Basil said, personal brand is who people say you are when you're not in the room. Well, yes, that's true, but hopefully it's coming from the authentic space of who you are and not your performance. Because who I am shows up in my performance, versus my performance being something that I just do because of what I do.
We might need another show. We might need another show, because you just opened up a whole can that we don't have an opportunity here to really go down that road. But
all this intelligence in the room with you all, and then the other hosts not available, I would love to.
Oh my gosh. You know what the who you think you are and your personal brand is in your head, and what they say when you are about you when you are not in the room, when I think about crafting your intentional personal brand,
Mm-hmm.
in that respect, your goal is to close that gap,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
right? That gap that exists where you're like, I'm all this in a bag of chips and I do all of these wonderful things. And you leave the room and everybody's like, oh my goodness gracious, like blah, 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 blah. No, 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 no. Right? That gap, leaders, is the gap that we have to close. Number one, somebody's got to pull our coat. Somebody's got to pull us behind the curtain and say, hey,
Yeah.
let me just tell you what's happening when you're not in the room, right? And I love you. I care about you. That's the only reason I'm having this conversation with you. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have it. All right, Rhonda, stop talking. We got to
That's
get
good
to the
stuff.
leaders code. We've got to get to the leaders code segment. And so Christopher said, couldn't agree more. Your real brand is your soul made manifest in the outer
That,
world. See, I knew it. Wrap it up.
right there. That
I
right
love that.
there.
Christopher, thank you
Good.
so much. Your soul made manifest in the outer world. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so let's do our Leaders Code segment where we're going to talk about the Leaders Code that's really resonating with us. What's the Leaders Code? It is the set of 15 principles that we use in LEADJITSU to really harmonize your leadership team, right? To get everybody on the same page, singing from the same sheet of music by having these core principles that we all use. So we'll go through and ask our panelists which leaders code is resonating with them right after we do the little intro. All right, leaders code. Murray, let's come to you first. Which leaders code is really resonating with
Oh,
you?
it's kind of difficult. There's been a lot said, but I will go with the warrior courage because I think to really come out as who you are and understand who you are, you need courage. Because with all the fear that people have to come out and accept to be judged, you need to be courageous enough to say, okay, yes, this is what you think of me, but this is who I am, and I accept who I am. So that's why I'm going for the warrior courage.
Nice. I love that. So, Roz, you're not here today, but I was going to let you go first.
Exactly.
So Murray couldn't steal yours first, like you said that she does on every show, but you're not here. So we'll do it next time. So, Marquise, the leader's code that's resonating for you.
She stole mine. No, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. Number 11, actually. Number 11, it reads harmony inclusion. Nijitsu leaders practice harmony inclusion, embracing diverse perspectives to create a unified and stronger whole, similar to how diverse techniques harmonize in Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice. Really nice. Love that. And all three of us today chose a different one. So today I'm going to go with number two, which is gi integrity. In gi integrity, Jiu-Jitsu leaders embody the honesty and uprightness represented by the gi, the Jiu-Jitsu uniform, signifying moral strength and ethical conduct in all endeavors. Knowing who you are, loving who you are, standing firm and true in who you are, unless you're authentically also and then awful and then you change. And Ross says, ha ha ha. So, sorry, Ross. And then
Same.
those smiley faces. Well, you know what? I can't believe that we are at the end of our time together. This has been an incredible conversation. I've loved every minute of it. And so we're going to prepare to wrap up our show for today. So, Marquise, as we do that, I want to just give you the spotlight and ask you, what do you want people to take away from this conversation?
You are amazing. You really are. And I don't know what
Thank
happened.
you. No.
And you are. But it's worth uncovering. It's worth uncovering so you can actually live a life that makes you happy. That's it.
Mhm.
Go for it.
Yeah,
That's all I got. I just
I
want people
love
to
it.
know you really are, and it's worth the work. It's going to take work, but it's worth the work. That's it.
Fantastic. And how can people connect with you on social?
Great question. That name right there is only owned by one other person, and that's my son. He's also awesome. I'm on Facebook under Marquese Martin-Hays, Instagram under the Marquese, YouTube. I've got a series of 100 videos that are dropping now. Another 100. So for the next 200 days, there'll be a video every day on YouTube where I'm talking about these kinds of things. You can also Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Those are my primary places. You can also find me on LinkedIn as well, where you can reach me on some company stuff there and some of the speaking engagements and other things that I do as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marquise. So, Mom missed a show today. My mom said she's at the doctor's and will catch the replay. She watches every show. So thank you. We will look forward to your comments there. So if you're out there, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have enjoyed and found value in this episode and this conversation of LEADJITSU Rise in the Dojo. You know where to find us. We'll be back here next week. Same time, same station. We only have 2 more episodes left in this season before we go on our long 12-week break. So 2 more episodes left. And I'm going to try, since I'm still here on the island of Anguilla, I'm going to try to do one of the shows where you get a beautiful backdrop, but it's kind of tough because the sun's bright and the camera and the lighting, it's a little crazy. But I'm going to give it a shot and we'll see how that works out. So everybody, for my panelists, stay tuned for just a second. For everyone out there, we look forward to seeing you back here next week on another episode of LEADJITSU Rise in the Dojo. Until then, take good care.